At the beginning of that week, again, like he was a free agent. He did get tagged, right? But so like you're doing, again, where we watch, like I mentioned at the beginning, while you pare it down, like we evaluate every free agent, every single UFA, every single RFA. Like that's a part of our process that starts in like October, and so we evaluate all of these players, and we have an idea of the talent level and the skill, and so. Once we had an idea, and for my job, just to go back, my job is to stay in contact with all the teams, like my group, whether it's, Dwayne Joseph, Champ Kelly, our pro scouts, we're constantly in touch with teams around the league, who's available, where's a need, where's a surplus, all those different things. That's just part of the scouting process. And so, within that process, and you inquire about players too. You know what I mean? So you may ask, hey, is player X available? Is player Z available? Those are some of the typical conversations that you have as you just as you work through your scouting process, and kind of going through that process, it came to fruition that he may be available, and we started to go down that path, and then
was he an exclusive rights franchise tag or a non, where you could have...
the way that he was is you could have put it on an offer sheet for him.
Got it.
And if you agree to that, you lose 2 ones.
Right. Okay.
So there's a trade-off for doing that.
And they could have always matched it.
And then they could have matched it.
Right.
Yeah. Without going into too much detail, there's a lot of, I just say that, like the pros and cons, like understanding when you're going to, and this is for any trade, but understanding when you're going to acquire a player and you're going to give up draft picks, like what's the ramifications for that, right? Not just this coming year, but in future years too. And so that was a huge part of the consideration process. At the end of the day, to add a player as talented as Davante Adams is, with like a long body of work, right? This isn't a player that's been good for 2 years. This is a player that's been at the top of his game for a long time, and then when you learn about the player, you start to understand why he's been at the top of his game for a long time. Highly competitive, high level work ethic, just very dedicated to being great every day, like practice. I mean, this guy, as the stories go, this guy goes as hard as anybody on a day-to-day basis in practice. And so when you kind of, a great player, great person, great work ethic, then you're starting to weigh the picks. I mean, there's a lot of different conversations that go into it, but at the end of the day, we felt like adding that high caliber of a player and person to our organization was worth the cost.
How did you feel about the domino effect that it kind of created with Tyreek Hill leaving the Chiefs heading out?
Yeah, I mean, I've read that was part of it. I don't really know what went into their decision-making process. I obviously am not in their building, so I don't know. I don't know if that was how that impacted their decision. Not seeing Tyreek Hill twice a year, though he's still in the AFC, unfortunately, there's nothing bad about not having to see him. He's a very talented player, so the Dolphins got a great player, and yeah, it was interesting how that all went down. I know from a fan perspective and things like that, whether it was tied together, I mean, I'm not sure. If you're a fan of the AFC West, it's been exciting, right? No, it's exciting. I think from the fan perspective, I get it. I think it's exciting, and I think being in the NFL is highly competitive as is, and when you in our conference, there's been a lot of talented players, high-profile players, I should say, right, that have been added, and again, that makes it, I guess, that just kind of makes it even that much more exciting, and it's. You're going to have to gear up week in and week out. Russell Wilson, talented player. The Chargers, I know, had added some talented players in free agency. J.C. Jackson, who we had in New England, and things like that. And so, yeah, it's exciting. And it just, again, I don't know if it makes you any more focused, but like, do you take notice? Yeah, you take notice. The teams are getting better. And that's who you're competing against. So I think something you take notice of for sure.